Good evening. I will call the meeting to order at this time. If you will, please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. This time I will call on Dr. Barber to lead us in the invocation.
Let's pray. Lord, I thank you so much for this opportunity we had that we can come and gather for your business. Lord, this is the town business, but it's your business too. We want to make sure, Lord, that whatever we do that will be honoring to you and honoring to our town citizens. Help us, Lord, as we pay attention to the requests that are being made and that we give due diligence to it, Lord. We pray that everything that we do here tonight bring glory to your name. For it's in your name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. At this time, I'd like to call Girl Scout Troop 614 to the front, please, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, ladies. Also, if you don't mind just staying at the front, please, I would like to recognize Valerie. Is Valerie here? Valerie Smith, for being in Girl Scouts for 14 years. Is that correct? Outstanding. And I guess you're considered a Girl Scout ambassador. Is that correct? Outstanding. And then Jana Garcia for 11 years in Girl Scouts. And Caitlin Hill just starting her 9th year as a Girl Scout. Is that correct? All right. Well, congratulations to all of you, and thank you very much for coming out this evening and leading us in the pledge. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, you have the agenda in front of you. There are, a couple of known change, or one known change, in addition to the consent agenda. Item number 10, special event fall festival. Consideration and request for approval to allow Compass Community Church to hold a fall festival on September the 25th, 2021 from 4 till 7 p.m. Smithfield Community Park. And this request includes the use of amplified sound. So that's the one known change. Do we have any other changes to the agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda with this addition. Is that not closed session? Not on? Oh, we need to add that as well. Okay. And then also, we have a closed session already on the agenda pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A 6-4, but I think we need to add section 3 as well, so it would be for the purposes of North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A 3, 4, and 6. And then I think that is it. That's correct. Any other changes? Not seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda with these additions.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, our first item is a presentation, and it's proclamation declaring September the 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week in the town of Smithfield. If there are any members of the Smith-Bryan chapter of the DAR, you will please come forward. Proclamation Constitutional Week, September the 17th through the 23rd, 2021 in the town of Smithfield. Whereas September the 17th, 2021 marks the 234th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document in its memorial anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issue of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Andy Moore, Mayor of the Town of Smithfield, do hereby proclaim September the 17th through the 23rd, 2021 to be Constitutional Week in the Town of Smithfield, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by diligently protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Is the poster for me? Okay. All right. We will display that in the town hall. All right. Thank you, ladies, for coming out this evening. Thank you for this. Okay, at this time, we have citizens' comments. Anyone wishing to speak during citizens' comments, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and I will ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Good evening. I am Pam Lampy, and I live at 415 North 2nd Street, Smithfield. I'm glad the Town Council has directed the Planning Board to look at adding landscape regulations for single-family homes to our UDO. Thank you very much. I would also like for you to consider beefing up the existing regulations for multifamily homes, commercial, industrial, etc. I would also like to see us expand our use of landscape buffers, building setbacks, and berms. Projects do not necessarily need to be put literally next to the road without appropriate landscaping, berms, and barriers. We can require more from the developers because they want a beautiful and safe project too, and we should. Also, if a high-density residential project is going to go beside a low-density single-family home, we need to make sure that berms, setbacks, fencing, and buffers are sufficient so that every taxpayer is happy with the new growth. Mrs. Twisdale's beautiful farm is an example of a taxpayer's unhappiness with the Buffalo subdivision's lack of screening, lack of landscaping, etc. Smithfield has a blank canvas as far as new growth. I would like to challenge the members of the town board and its staff to develop/require new landscape ordinances in our UDO that will make new development projects both good economically and aesthetically pleasing. We want Smithfield to have a more unified and vibrant plan to move us forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak during citizens' comment? Okay, not seeing any. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, first, we'll move on to business items. Our first business item is CZ-21-03 Floyd's Landing. Stephen, I'll turn that one over to you, sir.
Thank you.
When you're ready.
All right, so the town council reviewed this at the last meeting and tabled it to this meeting. Public hearing was already opened and closed. The developer has made some changes, and right now they are proposing 89 single-family homes, 220 single-family townhomes, and 360 apartment units, for a total of 669 total number of dwelling units. The August meeting, they had 118 single-family homes, 220 townhomes, and 360 apartments. So you can see the difference. There are 29 fewer detached single-family homes. I'm just going to go through changes only, unless there's other questions. You know, the audience may not have been here for the whole discussion. But, for sake of time, I don't want to repeat. So they've got a revised master plan. This is probably too small to see anything, so we'll move on to the, sorry, went the wrong way. So this is the plan that you guys reviewed last month. In particular, look in the center of the site how the single-family homes were arranged with the townhomes, because that's the area of change. In the new plan, you can see they have a single row of single-family homes along that entry drive, or that primary east-west drive, north-south drive. And the townhomes are on one side of the street and the single families on the other. And they've taken out a whole looped street in there that contains single-family homes. So that is the primary difference, reducing the number of single-family homes and bumping up the townhome number a little bit. Again, this is the rest of the development. So the overall density is at 3.35. It was previously proposed at 3.5, so we lost a few units. We do now have recommendations, TIA recommendations, a traffic impact assessment. Nothing surprising, but they're working close at hand with the Amazon development with DOT to address the traffic situation. The right-of-way width in the townhouse area has been reduced to 50 feet wide from 60. That's the right-of-way width. That was done to increase the setback from 20 feet to 30 feet with the intention of being able to add an additional car to the driveways to address the parking issue. The lot depth went to 100 feet. Sorry, increased lot depth from 100 feet to 110 feet. And with the street, the change in the street from 60 to 50, typically you've got a 5-foot utility strip behind the curb, then a sidewalk. That utility strip has been reduced to 3 feet. So that's where they're getting some of that extra setback, or distance, I should say. Street sections. So the proposed minimum lot size is now 5,175 square feet, which is an increase from the 4,829 square feet. This is because they've increased the lot width from 42 to 45 feet, so making the lots a little wider, and they're still 115 feet deep. No change in the townhouse placement, between buildings, but the typical townhouse lot is increased from 100 to 110 feet. As I said previously, the townhouse lot width has increased from 20 feet to 22 feet wide and 24 feet wide on the end units. And the end units will have double wide garages as opposed to a single car garage. For parking, there will be 162 one-car garage lots, 87 with two-car garages, and there now will have 122 overflow parking spaces. The apartments haven't changed. The numbers for the apartments haven't changed at all. The garages are really the same standards as they had been previously. They now have included single-family architectural standards. I mean, they were suggested before, but they're written down at this time. So end units facing the public right-of-way will have a minimum of 2 windows. Facades may include a mix of siding types, including lap siding, board and batten, shake, stone, or brick. Each unit shall include a minimum of 2 of these elements. Each unit shall have a minimum of 1 decorative tree and 1 street tree and 6 shrubs. Each home will have a 2-car garage, and garage doors will have decorative elements on them. The townhouses also have standards. End units facing the public right-of-way will have a minimum of 2 windows. End units facing a public right-of-way must include screening landscape and side yard, landscaping in the side yard. The facade will be a mix of siding types, including lap siding, board and batten, shake, stone, or brick. Each unit shall have a minimum of 2 of these elements. For each unit, there'll be a minimum of 1 decorative tree and 4 shrubs, and a minimum of 50% of the units shall have 2-car garages. So those are the end units. And again, the garage doors will have the same decorative elements that the single-family homes have. So the development now meets or exceeds the 2.5 parking spaces per dwelling units that the council directed. There will be 7 pull-off parallel parking spaces for overflow parking in the single-family area besides what was proposed before. These are like pull-out parking, so they basically welcome people to the parking spot. The public street in the single-family area will be 31 feet wide, back-to-back of curb, which will allow for on-street parallel parking between residential driveways. And that is, again, there's also 7 designated pull-out parking spaces. In the townhomes, 2 parking spaces are proposed for each end unit within garages and 2 to 4 within the driveways. That's for the 2-car. 1 parking space is proposed for each interior unit within a garage and the 1 or 2 in the driveway. That second car, if it's a large car, might overhang the sidewalk some. But if you have 2 small cars, you can get 2 cars in the driveway. And again, townhouse area is going to have 134 overflow guest parking spaces provided in parking lots. They are providing 42 garage units in the apartment area that'll be available for rent. That was in response to the lack of storage as required by the apartment code, the multifamily code. And they had indicated they would have garages for storage, and now they've shown them on the plan. go to the summary page. So the summary of the changes from the plan, last plan, the density changed from 3.5 to 3.35. Single-family units were reduced from 118 to 89 units. Architectural standards were introduced. Front setbacks have increased from 20 feet to 30 feet. Create a distance of 33 and a half feet from the sidewalk to the garage. Townhouse right-of-way has decreased from 60 to 50 feet. The utility strip was reduced from 5 feet to 3 feet in the townhouse area. Lot depth has increased from 100 to 110. End units have gone from 20 to 24 feet wide to accommodate two-car garages. Interior townhouse units went from 22 to 22 feet wide. Talked about that. Single lots have increased in width. The lot size has increased as a result. Street widths in the single-family area has increased. We got 7 additional pull-out parking spaces. And now we have the details of pool house, maintenance car wash area, and the storage units. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in your staff report. I do have them summarized here, including the deviations that will be enshrined by the plan. Are there any questions?
Questions for Stephen?
Mr. Winsman, I do have one question, and you may be able to answer the applicant. You spoke of the end townhouses being larger garage, is that correct?
The end units on either side of a long building, I think it's 6-unit, 5-unit buildings, will be 2-car garage units 24 feet wide.
And that's on the end of every cluster?
Yeah.
Or for example, is it just a row, the ones on the end of the road?
No, each building.
Okay. So for example, on this part adjacent to 70, there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 end units in that one row, because there's 3 buildings. Does that make sense?
That sounds appropriate?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. I was looking at the chart here, and it said that, where's my paper that showed that? Had it a minute ago. There was a question about, perhaps help me find it here right quick. Yeah, okay, if you go to your slide that you had,
The apartments.
it would be numbers, the one here, it's got this, it's got the apartment numbers on it. It says type, building type, this one here.
Okay.
I had a question about that. It looked like 2 of them were the same. I don't know the difference between building type 1 and maybe building type 2 and 3 shows 12 1-bedroom, 12 2-bedrooms. Type 3, 12 1-bedrooms, 12 2-bedrooms. So
You're talking about the attachment?
yes,
You're talking about the apartment types?
apartment types. Yep.
Yeah, that wasn't explained. I'll let the applicant explain that in detail. I'm assuming it just had to do with the size of the buildings. But the applicant's here if you want him to answer those questions.
I like to know what the differences is. Yes.
You will please state your name. Address for the record, please.
Good evening, board members. Mark Ashness with the C Group, 301 Glenwood Avenue, Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you for the opportunity to come back tonight. Yes, regarding the apartments, there's 3 types. One of the units, I think it's the type 3 that has the 3-bedroom on the corners and 1 bedroom. All of the units are garden-style apartments, and there's 24 units basically in every building pad, 3 stories. So there's 8 units on each floor with stairs going up. And the difference between the type 1 and type 2 is just the variation of the type 1 and type 2 are 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms, but the actual layout is different. It's a little wider, so it's a different product type. This is basically from some of the similar apartments that the same developer's done in Clayton and some other locations. So every building is going to have 1-bedroom units, and they're either going to have 2-bedroom units or 3-bedroom units, depending on the mix.
Did you show that somewhere, the difference between the two?
What I would say is, we probably shouldn't even have shown the types on this plan, because we're gonna have to come back with a site plan for the apartments.
Okay.
And it'll be a real, like a construction drawing level plan that you'll see, but we're just sort of showing you our intent, I guess, right now. I apologize for putting that information in there. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mark Ways up here? Any other questions? We may need to call you back, but thank you.
I've got a few other comments when it's appropriate.
Sure. Any other questions, concerns?
Mr. Winsman, I do have a comment. We talked briefly about the buffer. Did we determine the size, height, and the trail? Did you spend time looking at that? That was discussion before?
There was a slide about the buffers, maybe
Yeah, I saw
I
it
skipped over that. Yeah, the master plan has a detailed elevation of that buffer. Let me see if I can find that.
Plans that show this. I think the buffer's on the back page. This is the same information we shared with Steve.
Thank you.
I think the open space is that back page, there'll be some details.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped over that, but this is a slide that represents that. And I did want to point out that the planning board had recommended a 100-foot buffer on the north end and the south end of the development. And the developer has not increased the buffer on the north end. It's still a 50-foot buffer. So that is something the council should specifically address when they make their conditions, because we need a condition of approval to increase that. If the council believes that a 100-foot buffer is needed at the north end, but the plan is only showing 50.
On the side, the 100-foot buffer is still in place for the,
On the south side.
right, which abuts the current existing subdivision that's.
The north side, we'll have an item later tonight about rezoning that north side property to industrial.
So my question is, so it looks like to me that the buffer, whatever it's gonna be, separating Highway 70 from the backyards of these houses will be some type of a berm, and then you'll have some trees and shrubs
And a fence.
and a fence. All that on one side to guard it, so you won't be able to see. Point is, you're not gonna be riding down 70 and be able to see into the backyard.
That's correct, and really what we want to do is create some uniformity, so we think the fence with the landscaping and the berm, it'll, as you're coming down 70, it'll all look uniform along the whole frontage of the property. So a fence is something that we just elected to add because we thought that would help enhance the recognition of the community.
Now, so that fence has actually been part of the outward barrier of if they decide that they want to put fences in their yard, they would have to do that. They would not be able to connect to that fence, because that fence is a barrier, not part of the yard, because it's on the.
Correct.
On the berm.
It won't be on the top of the berm, it'll probably be on the front third of the berm. So there'll be landscaping basically in front of the fence and some landscaping behind the fence also. And that's all within a 50-foot corridor that's not even part of someone's lot. So if someone elected to put in a fence, it would not touch this fence.
Very good.
What is the height of that berm? I'm just curious.
In the 50-foot berm, it's gonna be at least 5 feet, maybe 6 feet, because you don't wanna have very steep, you want the slopes to be natural looking and easy to plant on, and so, and then there'll be some flattening, of course, on the top of the berm as well. When you put the vegetation that we're looking at, you're gonna end up with something that's gonna be at least, 10 or 11 feet plus the taller trees that are gonna be spaced in there too.
You know what type of trees you're planning on planting?
We haven't selected that yet.
It makes a difference, I mean, it does.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be street-type trees, and then there'll be medium-sized trees, and obviously some ground story shrubbery that'll be mixed in that area.
Evergreen trees or seasonal?
I think there'll be some seasonal on the taller trees. Obviously, the lower stuff will be evergreen. And then there'll probably be something with some color, at least at the entrance areas as well.
Yeah. Stephen, what is type D standards for berm? It says there on the Smithfield, type D standards.
It's a bermed buffer. That's all it is. It's a bermed buffer.
So that's all we say. Type
Pretty
D
much.
is the same thing as type A then, right?
It's same as type C with a berm, I believe. I have to check my code book, but we have A, B, C, and D. I think D, let's see, no, D is with a fence, I'm sorry. It's a buffer with a fence.
So really, he's doing us type D then, if you got a fence.
That's right. And C is without the fence.
Okay, so you're actually doing a type D, not type C.
Should have brought my specs with me.
Actually, it says,
Yeah, it should be on
No,
here.
it does say type D.
Yeah.
It's all right there.
Should have brought the big plans.
Type D, okay, I got it, yep, okay. So type D with a fence.
The A buffer between the existing subdivision and the apartments, what is the type A, just vegetative buffer?
A type A is a 10-foot buffer. But they're providing 50 feet.
Okay, so it's just a
Yeah.
50-foot open buffer.
With a type A landscape, I believe is what.
Yes, so basically, we actually have 100 on the south side, and we are gonna have a berm there. That berm could be as high as, say, 6 or 8 feet. We're gonna have plenty of topsoil out there, so it doesn't, it's not a problem in terms of lifting that, because we've got more room to kind of graduate the berm in that location.
All right. Any other questions?
So just to clarify, you don't have any type of a barrier between those two commercial lots right now and the project, you don't know what you're gonna do with it yet, right?
Right, I mean, we've got basically a commercial street that's running there behind the back of those lots that would be sort of the service drives and also a collector road within the project. But and we think that there'll be natural landscaping done in the apartment, and then there'll be landscaping done in the commercial. And, we're expecting there will be pedestrian interaction, between those two areas.
And the commercial, the buffering code requires a pretty good buffer between residential and commercial properties, so there will be some buffers required when those sites develop.
On the north side of this project, you had a 50-foot buffer. Kind of probably getting in front of myself here or behind, whatever. We can add a 50-foot, if that was industrial, to make that one 100 feet wide, couldn't we? He's only asking 50, right, on the buffer, yes.
When the industrial develops, they'll be required to put I believe a 20-foot buffer between their property and the residential property. So we'll end up with a 70-foot total buffer at that time.
We'll also, if you look at our plan, we have some space. We have a cul-de-sac bulb there in that north end. We actually have some space before the first lot would start. And we also have a little bit of a park area with a stormwater pond on the other side of that cul-de-sac. So we're not really pushing a lot right up against that buffer there.
Any other questions, comments? Stephen, we're the developer.
So, just one question related to the DOT roads here. I saw a map that showed that, I saw it said XD project, which knows Amazon now, right? But the question is, so the first drive, if we're coming from the town of Smithfield going outward, the first one there is going to be at a stoplight, correct?
That's right. There'll be a
That's when the
signal.
DOT will put a stoplight in there to allow the employees entrance, right?
Yes, and that works out really well for us because we've got commercial right at that sort of same
Yep.
location. Yep. The second location, we will have a leftover, so if you're leaving town, you would be able to make a left turn into the second location. But leaving from the second, it's a right in, right out. So someone leaving this project and wanting to go north from the middle entrance, they will not be able to do that. They
Now
would
you're
have-
gonna stop light and do a U-turn.
Exactly, and it's very close. So
Yeah.
from a standpoint of accessibility for the neighborhood and for the future commercial, you essentially have two access points that sort of wrap around the commercial. One of them is a full signal and the other's a right in, right out. So it's fine for our needs and we don't have any issues with
So
it.
then the third one down is just gonna be another right out?
The third one, our understanding is it's gonna be an unsignalized full service, meaning we'll have, there's already a left turn lane already built out there and someone would be able to leave the north and make a left and go
So
out.
that's where that one is at, where the turn with the ultimate, where it's already at the turn across.
What they're looking to do, and it's still not finalized, we've gotten information from the district office, and they're looking to do some kind of a turnaround between our middle entrance and the north entrance, so that if a truck is leaving from that central entrance and they need to go back towards town, they would go up and they wouldn't have to go all the way to our north entrance. There would be a leftover that allows them to do a U-turn before that point. And they've actually talked to us about providing a little extra right-of-way in a small area, so our landscape berm would need to pull away. And we've told them we don't have any real objections to that once they finalize where that needs to go.
Any other questions? Comments from anyone?
I don't have nothing to do with them, but I'm concerned about the people, truck exit coming out of the Amazon building, and then they're gonna have to turn back left. I mean, they can't do it, and they're gonna make a U-turn, kinda like a U-turn, because it's still a U-turn, on 70 business to make a U-turn. And with that big transfer truck. That's not now if they're using the vans, we got no problem. But if they're using the big trucks, that could be an issue.
Right, so what they have, and this is pretty, DOT calls these smart streets. I mean, you're starting to see them, come in and everywhere, really. What happens is on our side of the property, or the right-of-way, there's actually like a half bulb that comes, so when the truck makes the turn, they actually can sweep over, does that make sense, and come around? It's pretty typical what we're seeing. I mean, I live in Chatham County, just below Chapel Hill, and that whole 15501 corridor for Chapel Hill to Pittsboro, they've been putting those turnarounds in like you're talking about. And it's a pretty heavily, traveled road.
Put them all off the 70 business going to Golden.
Yeah.
They're all there.
Yeah.
But I just didn't, I don't know, there's nothing to do with you, I'm concerned about that.
Sure.
Because trucks are gonna have to turn left, as much as they have to turn right. I mean,
It looks like that will help accommodate.
Yep.
All right, any further questions, comments?
And I just had one clarification
Sure.
if I can make.
Yeah, absolutely.
The townhome ratio is actually, the two-car is a little bit better than 33%. It's not 50%. And I've got that in the updated narrative, but I just want to make that for the record.
Appreciate that. Was that
I hope we paid our exterminator this month. Jeez, please. Mike, can you check on that? Whew. Yeah, well, thank you, guys. It must have been after this. Sure you were. Hopefully Mark can edit that out before this is broadcast. So, okay. Mark, I'm sorry, what was that statistic you said again? Do you mind? I got a little out there.
It will be, the two-car garages will be better than 33%. The point that y'all made earlier, we've got, most of the buildings are 6 units, and the two, obviously, on the end, so that's right at the 33%. But we have some 5-unit buildings, too. So when you have, just 3 internal units, that increases it to, say, 37%. So it'll be somewhere between, say, 33 and 35% is the ratio of two-car garages.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Any further questions, comments? Not seeing any. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
My name is Mark Blaine. I live at 2108 Yelverton Grove Road in Smithfield. Stephen, can, go back to the slide where the berm, where you had the berms. Go back. Okay, this one on this, it says the southern 100-foot buffer will consist. Okay, how about the northern?
That's 50 feet with a type A.
Did not we, the planning board, ask for 100-foot?
That's right, I made that clarification, and it's in the conditions in yellow for the council to address.
Was it not supposed to be a berm? I mean, yeah, a berm?
Don't recall.
Okay.
And I don't recall if the developer was including a berm on the north.
I'll be honest with you, I don't recall any discussion on the north, because that was before the commercial or the industrial project came in. From my notes, I didn't have anything there.
Plans right here.
We've got more than 50 feet on our side, as you can look at our plan. I'm sure, we've got a little park area right up there. I mean, we do industrial work just like what's happening across the street from us and frankly, usually it's that entity that has to provide the larger buffer. Like in other jurisdictions, if we're the industrial, we actually have to put in something like a 75 or 80-foot buffer. I'm not saying that's what they should do, but I'm just telling you that's generally the norm. Is the more intense user, it's their burden to put in a buffer on the property.
Yeah, the plans never called for a berm on the north side, but they provided a berm on the south side and along the street. So I know the planning board had recommended 100-foot. I don't recall if that was
I missed that. I mean, I knew we had the 100 on the south. We actually volunteered that with the houses that were already existing there.
I got the condition of approval that was recommended by the planning board and copied it in.
Kirby, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, the planning board had recommended a 100-foot bermed buffer on the north end as well. So that is a condition that the council should address, whether to condition that or to strike that condition. And then there's also a condition that the townhouse portion of the development be posted in no parking zone. So that should also be addressed.
Got it. Okay. All right.
One more thing, and I'll sit down. Y'all have asked for growth. The town for years and years has asked for growth. So it's finally here. We've got almost 700 homes or 700 units in this project. We've got maybe 150 units coming up in the next project. I know the planning board looked at development last Thursday night, and there's probably more coming in the next months ahead. My concern is the schools, and I know this has nothing to do with you all, but you know what's going on with the school board, and they've got their hands full, and I guarantee you they don't know any of this is going on. And
We met with them today. So
Correct.
just
I was gonna say,
FYI,
that's a courtesy.
we met with them today with their planning staff and so forth, so they are aware.
Good, so they can't say they don't know.
That's exactly right. But very good point.
All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
As a point of clarification, Mayor, about a month ago, Tim Kerrigan and I and Rocky Lane met.
Yeah, well, it's the second time, right. We've also met with them Tim and the planning director met with them at my request to make sure that they knew this was coming, because the comment that was made is they have this model from NC State, and I said, your model's wrong. And so they met with them about a month ago, and their eyes got pretty big, and they said they had no idea this was coming, so hence the reason why then there was another meeting today on the topic. Exactly. But we want them to go to school in Smithfield District, and that's what I want to make sure that the Board of Education understands, is if we're sacrificing and we're doing all of this to bring the development in, the kids should be going to school in Smithfield School District and not allowed to go outside of that district. Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? All right, so I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Mr. Mayor, he did say he had something else to add. Is now the appropriate time, or is it after we close the meeting?
Do you still need to add something? Just the ratio. So he already did. Yes, sir. So remember, we do have the conditions that are listed. And I think one thing that was already talked about was the berm, and one thing Mr. Lane just brought up, but it was clarified that it was a 20-foot, and then if it does go industrial, that would require another 50-foot at that time, or we could, it's the other way around, 50 and 20, so for a total of 70 as it's currently, if it does go industrial on that other side, so that would be 70 feet on that side.
And could go more.
Could go more, absolutely. But that's just one thing to take into consideration as far as emotion of what you need to do with that buffer on that side, if anything.
So, Stevie, can you run one more time for me through these conditions?
Sure.
Just one more time.
I'll go to the
That
first
way we
one.
got them fresh on our mind. I feel more comfortable. One more time.
The first one is that they have to come back with a preliminary plat and development plans for the subdivision in accordance with the approved master plan, what's being presented tonight, which includes these following deviations, which I've run through previously. So these are the areas where it does not meet standard UDO requirements. And then also, we had a condition that the cul-de-sac bulbs on the southern end of the development be 96-foot wide diameter to meet fire code, and that the trash and recycling roll-off containers in the townhouse area be stored within the garages or rear yards. That decorative lighting and decorative street trees be provided by the development throughout the site. That the subdivision signs be made of robust materials with landscaping equal to the area of the sign at all entrances into the development. Provide a complete landscaping and buffering plan. There's a requirement for shade trees along road frontages maintained by the public HOA. That the preliminary plat and construction plans be constructed according to the approved master plan. And then there's the 100-foot bermed buffer requirement on the north end, and then the parking condition for the townhouse area.
Thank you, sir. The only question I have is, this land down here that is not developed, not going to be developed because it's, okay.
The commercial zoning?
No.
The flood area?
land part at the bottom does not.
Yes.
Okay, the question is there going to need any type of maintenance or anything on that property?
It's just natural woods currently.
So I'm saying we don't currently know there's no need to do any maintenance on it currently, that's what I was asking.
Yeah, it's just.
So whenever they put these houses in, there won't be any additional need for any type of maintenance on that property down there as a
I don't
result of the
believe so.
construction?
I don't believe so. I don't think there's any paths that they're proposing or anything down
I'm
there,
just-
so.
That area will be, there'll be tree protection fence along that buffer. Ultimately, that land will be part of the HOA, the homeowners association, and so if at some point in the future, if they saw fit to do some, if there were some invasive species or something, they could, go in there and do that, be part of the covenants. But as of today, there is no plan to go into those areas. We would put up tree fence along that perimeter.
And there's currently nothing being done to that at this point in time anyway, so
Correct.
that's okay. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the council?
I have a comment before we vote. I just want to say that I appreciate the work that you've done. I think you listened to what we asked for, and you've met or exceeded what we requested. Whether we requested more or less, the point is you've not only met what, you've exceeded it. So I personally, I think you've done a great job with this. Mr. Mayor, I make a recommendation that we approve this with the 10 conditions.
Do we want number 9? as
All
the-
10, with the exception of number 9, we can leave it at the 50-foot pending any additional industrial development beside. At this point in time, the 50-foot is acceptable. We don't know what's going to come. So until we don't know what comes, 50-foot, we'd have to go to 100-foot if we had that. Total.
You can condition
Yeah,
future.
yeah, don't, yeah.
No, what I'm saying is you can make a condition that says it's 50, that we're gonna go with 100 foot, and then if something else goes in that area, though, you have to expand it to 100 foot.
Then I would recommend a 100-foot buffer because it's certain that something's gonna happen there.
Well,
On the other property.
okay, it has to be a minimum, it has to be a total of 100 regardless.
No.
7, no, okay.
According to the code, right?
According to code, it has to be 100.
50. It's proposed at 50. Yes.
But according to code, it has to be 100.
No, absolutely.
No.
I thought we just said that.
That was the
No.
recommendation.
Planning board recommended.
Recommendation.
Oh, planning board recommended, I'm sorry.
At such
I thought I heard
time
one
that
word.
there may be additional growth coming on the other side, we can then put additional buffer. And then
Okay.
we know what's coming. We know what we can buffer.
So it's 150 foot is the requirement.
Correct.
Okay, I make a recommendation, to change number 9 to 50 foot.
All right, I have a
And to meet the
motion,
requirement of the standard requirement
50 foot on the north.
on the north, yep.
And leave
There,
the
leave the 100
other,
on the
others
side.
as it. Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second? I have a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. I would like to say also, just as part of the discussion, I agree with Councilman Barber. My concern last time was parking, the street widths, and the lot sizes. And I think the developer has addressed that by increasing some of the parking for the townhomes to allow for at least 2 cars, because originally it was just a 1-car parking. You increase the size of the lots as well as you increase the size of the streets, which in my opinion will help for fire and EMS. And I know Councilman Barber, you had mentioned about being able to see what was going on as you're coming down 70. So you have elected to put in a fence and so forth. So I will commend you on that. So I wish that you didn't reduce the number of single-family residential, but also understand it. But I wish we had not have done that. But I think we'll need to address that in future development. Anyway, do we have a motion and a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
I'd like to make a quick comment.
Absolutely.
We've discussed this and thank the developers for their patience. This is gonna be one of the main entrances of Smithfield. That berm and that design is gonna be critical. And they've got a very clear plan. I just wanna make sure that we work with them to make sure that that's productive.
And again, who knows, right? But we have had this discussion. I have mentioned about berms that we have put in place around town and the condition of those berms, and I feel like the developer, they understand it, and they basically said that it would not look like those. So I'm certainly hoping that we can count on it, and I think we can. But yes, I agree, Councilman Scott. We need to pay close attention to that and the details of it. Thank you. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Okay. Our next presentation is Cedar Drive storm drainage.
I'll just stay here if it's okay with the mayor.
Sure.
Bill, go to
Okay.
This is a continuation of the business item last month about Cedar Drive storm drainage. This is an issue that's been ongoing. It's been talked about with the council. We were going to wait until the ARPA money came available. It is available. During the last meeting, they asked us to, I believe the council's direction was to go out and get a price as far as what it would cost to do the additional piping through Cedar Drive to try to eliminate some of the flooding there. Bill has done that. In doing so, one of the contractors took some initiative and went out on his own during a rainstorm on Cedar Drive and watched exactly how the water was flowing and came up with a little bit of an alternative that will actually be a little more cost effective for the town. So I'm going to let Bill explain that.
Yeah, it was, thank you, good evening. We looked at this like probably a year and a half ago, and we were thinking about looking at running a pipe up one side of Cedar Drive, beginning at the low spot, which is right in front of the home that's at 8 Cedar Drive. There's two culverts there, and that's the low spot of the street. J. Smith Civil gave us a price on that. It was about $175,000 was their estimate back a year and a half ago. We were still kind of thinking along those lines if we got to the point where funds were available. As Mr. Scott mentioned, working with one of the contractors, we're working with J.P. Edwards. They went out and shot some grades. He called me when they went out on a Saturday night. There was a heavy rainstorm, 2.5 inches, and he looked at it to see, what kind of flooding are we really seeing in this low point? And he was amazed at how much, and went up into 8 Cedar Drive's yard as we've all seen before. So met him out there on a couple of occasions, and we started rethinking the route. And actually, one of the issues with running up the curb line, besides the driveways, was a lot of utility conflicts. So I'm not even sure that old J. Smith Civil estimate would have covered it because of the utility relocations. So what we're looking at doing is just running up the street. So we're going to take out the two culverts that are in front of 8 Cedar Drive and put in two dual culverts on each side. There'll be a junction box, not in the middle of the street, but in the middle of one of the lanes, opposite of where the sanitary sewer is, so we're not having utility conflicts. We'll run 18-inch pipes into the junction box and then a 36-inch pipe all the way to Dogwood, and then tie into the larger pipe at Dogwood. So that's the way we ended up throwing it out to contractors to price. J.P. Edwards was low at $131,072 for that project. We're probably looking at 2 to 3 weeks construction time.
At which time you'll have to close the entire street, right? For
No,
that
we'll be
construction?
able to keep the street open.
You will?
Yeah, we're gonna work in one of the lanes.
Okay.
And we're probably gonna mill it up and then resurface it, so it's just not a patch. At least to one side. But if there's any questions,
Any
I'd be glad to answer.
questions, thoughts, comments?
Mr. Drexler, thank you for bringing this before us and understanding that it's not a perfect solution. I'm as equally concerned about the other areas in town we've seen with this recent rain event. And I still want to press that, we need to spend some time, talk with the manager, investigate these larger drains that go out to the runoff and clean them out. I think the efforts would be worth a lot of money, a lot of savings. We're going to have houses flooded if we don't address this.
Yeah, I
They
think-
having businesses.
Yeah, whether it's the pipes, whether it's the streams, the silt buildup has just been tremendous over the last couple of decades, and that's impacting our drainage significantly.
So Bill, you think that this proposal though is the better option than what we had?
I believe
On-
that this will
on the
help
plate.
mitigate the flooding that we're seeing in that area, but I don't believe it'll eliminate it. There's just not enough storage in a 36-inch pipe, 480 feet long. So some of the heavy rain events that we have, this may push on out fairly quickly and not flood at all. We get a 2-3 inch rain in 2 hours. You're still going to see some flooding out there, but what you will see, I believe, is you'll see the flood waters dissipate quicker. So the flooding that's over the curb and it's in some of the yards, when we have these real heavy rains, you might still see that occur, but you're going to see it dissipate faster.
So at the last council meeting, we had a different proposal in front of us. It was less money and so forth, but so we did put it off to this month so we could get another estimate, just to kind of refresh you guys' memory. So we did get another estimate, which is a different way of fixing things. Addressing the issue, as Bill said, doesn't think it will totally correct the issue, right? But I would make a recommendation that we move forward with it. We do have the other funds and so forth. We know exactly how much this is going to cost. A good rough estimate anyway of it. My recommendation is that we do move forward with this. 'Cause I too did go after one of the larger rains, and I saw it as well, and it was a little different than what I had seen previously. It seemed to stay around a little bit longer, but I do agree with Councilman Scott. Is obviously there are issues all across the town and that need to be addressed, but obviously when we have that considerable amount of rain in a very short period of time. Doesn't matter what size pipe you put in it, it's not going to be able to carry that water as quickly, enough, right? There's always will probably be some backup, but I say we move forward with it. Any questions, comments?
Make a motion.
There was a question in the last meeting, I think, the 36-inch pipe will work. I know Mike, you had made reference to it. It'll concern this situation because we're going down Hill Street to the curb line. It'll work fine in this situation because we're going down the center of one of the lanes of travel. Previously, we were gonna go down the gutter line and we were concerned that it would be too high to fit underneath the existing gutter. So we've taken that out of this scenario so we can do the 36-inch. Okay. It's a different approach. Yeah. That's good.
Councilman Scott?
Mayor, I make a motion, we approve the request.
Second. Motion and a second, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bill. Hey, he didn't hear you. Marlon would like this done before the next rain event, if possible.
It's gonna be 2 to 3 weeks, I'm not sure what, schedule is, but I imagine it'll start fairly quick.
And you'll send notices out to the neighbors and so forth, right?
Yes, sir.
Notices will go out to the neighbors, obviously, prior to. All right, thank you. And then we'll move on to our next item, which is public hearing. This is not a quasi-judicial hearing. It is NX-21-01 for a contiguous annexation petition, ASP Smithfield LLC /SST Properties, and FNLI, JNX LLC. Stephen, I'll turn that over to you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is, basically, it's Sept and Amazon are together requesting annexation because the Sept property's now been sold to Amazon, the big chunk of it, so. This is where the site is located, it's just north of Durwood Stevenson, north of a residential
One second.
development.
Stephen, let me open the public hearing right quick.
Oh,
Sorry,
sure.
my apologies. Have a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Now, sir.
All right. So the location is just north of Durwood Stevenson Parkway and a residential development located there on 70. Annexing 2 parcels, the Amazon site being 170 acres basically, and the remainder Sept properties being around 23, 24 acres. This is the survey for the entire annexation parcels. As a reminder, on July 8th, the council adopted resolution 683, asking the clerk to investigate the sufficiency of the petition. It was determined to be sufficient. On August 3rd, the council adopted resolution 685, setting the public hearing for tonight. So as an analysis of this annexation, Smithfield will provide water and sewer utilities to the annexation area. The utilities are already extended into the site by Amazon. The police department has indicated that they are able to serve the area if annexed into the town without much additional cost. Fire protection, there is already in the town's fire district. Trash and yard pickup are not services provided to industrial properties. With a future plat, there may be additional public streets to maintain. So currently, Amazon is utilizing a private driveway on an easement on Sept's property, and until that is platted, it will not be a road. Just to make that clear. So right now, there's no public road, and none being developed. Code enforcement can provide enforcement without any additional cost. So the annexation will encompass the Amazon development site, which is 170 acres, plus an additional roughly 24-acre parcel. The Amazon site is expected to have a $90 million market value when constructed. The remaining 23-acre parcel will likely be platted in the future with some warehousing sites and a public road. And with annexation, the town will be able to provide services to that area. So with this public hearing, if the council determines these four conditions be met, annexation can be approved. And so with that, town council has three options. You can approve the contiguous annexation and adopt ordinance 506. You could table the discussion for no longer than 6 months or deny the annexation petition. With that, do you have any questions?
Any questions for Stephen? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this matter in the audience? Mr. Johnson is here. You will please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Chris Johnson, I'm the county economic developer speaking on behalf of Sept and Amazon. I spoke with Sam Blatt last week, and obviously both companies are well aware that this was a part of the incentive agreement and the package when they came to Smithfield and Johnston County. So they're in favor of the annexation. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this matter at this time? Okay, not seeing any. There are no further questions from the council. I'll entertain a motion, a second, to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close it.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Pleasure of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I make, we approve the continuous annexation petition and adopt the ordinance number 506.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mayor, I have a comment I'd like to make. I'd like to thank Mr. Johnson and the county partners for making this happen. This is a historical moment for Smithfield. The tax base that this brought and the growth and the jobs, looking at their reports and such, that's a major need in this area. This is a huge deal. I just want to tell them thank you.
Absolutely. Madam Clerk, that did pass by unanimous vote. All right. We'll move on now to our next public hearing. Again, this is not a quasi-judicial hearing, so no need for anyone to be sworn in at this time. And it is RZ-21-02. Your agenda may have 01, but I believe it is RZ-21-02. Is that correct? Okay. Kimberly Gower Johnson. The applicant is requesting to rezone 5 parcels of land totaling 69.26 acres from B3 and R20A zoning district to light industrial zoning district. Properties considered for rezoning are located in the east and west side of US 70 Business West, approximately 670 feet south of its intersection with Barber Road. Properties are further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 150-780-19A, 150-780-19D, 150-780-19F, 150-780-20, and 150-780-20A. This time I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Stephen?
Thank you. The mayor described this slide very well. In the yellow are the annexation parcels, and you can see the zoning in red being commercial and the other being R20A. And this all is just north of the Amazon site.
Can you pull that picture back up?
Sure. And the dashed site below is the residential site we just approved. So to the north, we have B3 and R20A zoning, existing land uses, agricultural, residential. To the south, it's, well, it was just rezoned to Part of it was, anyway. The south is R20A and agricultural, but also R8 conditional zone. To the east, we have B3, R20A, and light industrial. And to the west, we have heavy industrial and the airport. Again, the parcels are numbered here with their various acreages and ID numbers. Just give you an idea of the different sizes. I'll move on. This has pretty much been covered. The fire district on this property is Wilson's Mills. I want to point that out. Everything else tonight has been in the Smithfield Fire District. Water provider and sewer provider would be Town of Smithfield. Electrical provider would be Duke if it was developed. The properties are not located within a floodplain. A blue line stream forms the southern boundary of Parcel 4. And that is the boundary between Amazon and this rezoning parcel. It's adjacent to where they're building their giant storm pond, if you've been out there. So all the parcels are split zoned with the area of 500 feet adjacent to Highway 70 being B3 and the remainder being R20A, except for Parcel 5, which is fully within the B3 zoning district. That's the smallest parcel. The zoning is mostly consistent with the comprehensive growth plan. We had anticipated this area becoming industrial, or had guided that, except for the parcel between the Floyd's Landing and the airport. That was not envisioned as industrial, but the Gowers would like that also to be zoned industrial. So this rezoning would be a further step towards the realization of a larger industrial park as was envisioned in the comprehensive plan. Parcel 1 was not included in that vision, which is the parcel north of Floyd's Landing. It was guided for low-density residential in the comprehensive plan. The properties to the north and south of Parcel 1 are guided and zoned for low-density residential. There are several small parcels just to the north that are actually, I think 3 of the 5 are owned by Gowers. There's a heavy family presence in that residential area, but they would be a small remnant of housing between the airport and this rezoning. By and large, those residential properties are buffered by a pond and some existing trees. And we just talked about the buffer to the south, the 50-foot buffer with a berm adjacent between Floyd's Landing and Units and this property. The Johnson County Regional Airport has a long-term vision to develop the south side of the runway. In order to, with supportive industrial uses, in order to access that area, they're going to need an easement from the Gowers on that Parcel 1 just south of the airport. So there would be, in a sense, some industrial traffic through that property if the airport vision is to be fulfilled. So here's the comprehensive plan. You can see parcels 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all guided for industrial, but parcel 1 was low density. Okay. This is the draft concept plan for the future airport industrial, and you can see it crosses that parcel 1 being requested for zoning. So the parcels are within the town's ETJ, and the town has first right to refuse them for water and sewer utilities. Johnson County currently provides water and sewer utilities to the airport and the industrial properties across the road from the airport on Citation Lane. The properties are within the Duke Electrical Service area. Staff finds the the proposal consistent with the comp plan, with the exception of Parcel 1. If the town council approves this rezoning, that would basically be a comp plan amendment. We'd update our comp plan accordingly. Otherwise, we find it consistent with the UDO and consistent with surrounding land uses. Planning staff and the planning board recommend the town council approve the rezoning with a consistency statement, and I have a recommended motion here for you. Any questions?
Any questions for Stephen at this time from the council? Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this matter, if so, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Chris Johnson. I live at 516 South 4th Street. I'm speaking on behalf of my family and not the County of Johnston. Even though I do wear that hat, I want to make sure that this board, as well as the public that's listening in and sitting here tonight, understand that there is not an active project. We don't have anything to do with the property at the moment. We continue to leave it as agricultural use for right now. However, in dealing with economic development issues and projects across the county, obviously having things rezoned for light industrial is a whole lot easier when projects consider our area. Again, we have nothing at the moment, but looking into the future, and that's basically all it is. So thank you very much. Be more than happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
Yeah, I have a question. So my question is, as we look at the properties, if just probably, I'm assuming that if you're looking at the possibility of developing something out there or somebody purchasing it to develop it, would your intent as economic development, I'm putting the other hat on, to continue the move for annexation with Smithfield as we move more towards that way? I mean, is that what you try to encourage those businesses to do as they went into the light industrial area? Because, again, we're trying to continue to expand Smithfield to make sure that we have the tools and resources we need to grow properly.
Well, I can tell you this, if they want services, water and sewer, they're going to have to come into the town of Smithfield. So that's not my call. That will be this board's call, whether or not to provide those services. My struggle that I see across the county is although we do need opportunities for people to have affordable places to live, but we also need to create jobs for them to work at. And, when you think about the 600 homes that were just approved earlier at $200,000 each, that's the same thing that was just announced a couple of months back at Amazon as far as the tax base, with 500 people working there. And so my role is to create jobs and grow jobs. And so, but do it in a way that, obviously this is home for me. I've lived here for well over 30 years now. I'll probably cremated and sprinkled in the Neuse River because of him again. But I want to make sure that I leave this community better than the way I found it, and that's creating jobs and opportunities for our young folks and our citizens here. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else wishing to speak on this matter? So I will say that I know Mike and the department heads know, and many of you know, the whiteboard in my office says, think residential with every thought and with every discussion. Because I'm a firm believer that the more residential growth, though I want it to be controlled residential growth, and I don't want us to explode and be out of control, but I do think the residential growth is what will help change our school systems. Our school system, not only here in Smithfield, but within Johnston County, because the more people moving in, the more people you get into your school system in a variety and a mix of students, right? But if you go in there, if you've been in there in the last 8 months to a year, probably, you see off to the side of that a bubble that says, think industrial growth, think industry. Because we're getting the residential growth now. So as Mr. Johnson said, we need to now start switching gears, which we already have, of providing jobs for those residents so that they not only can live here in Smithfield, but they don't leave the county, they don't leave Smithfield and the county to go work in Wake County or Wayne County or wherever. They have good paying jobs right here. And we've got to plan for that, and we've got to have the areas for that type growth to come. Wanted to kind of throw that out there. All right, any other comments? If not, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved to close the public hearing.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any?
Yeah, the only thing I'm gonna make a comment related to the, I think that as we look at as we plan and we look, I think one of our discussions we had before was that, the 70 corridor, really because of the traffic flow and everything, works really better for industrial growth and push the people in the suburbs behind those industrial buildings, be far better approach. So I think the approach of making this light industrial kind of fits in that model, that, that particular corridor, and then, again, people can build the housing projects behind those businesses and not be entering in and out like this one here in Floyd's Landing. Like I said, we're already seeing they're going to be going out on the major highway, having to come in and out. Whereas if you push it off, they still eventually have to come in and out, but the local traffic would be inside, not outside.
Mayor, I'd like to make a couple comments for a motion. I reflect back on Mr. Rocky Lane's comments about commercial growth versus residential. They're both extremely important, but remembering that the commercial brings opportunities, jobs, and it brings a lot of incentives to have stuff that people can go to work at and such. The ratio was significantly more in favor of commercial in the right areas. Having said that, I agree with Councilman Barber that this area is already somewhat industrialized to some degree with the airport, and we got gas tank manufacturer and Amazon. A future school coming out there. I say all that to say I'll make a motion to recommend that we approve the zoning map amendment, RZ 2108, planning board, as written here in our slides right here.
Second. Motion.
Clerk, did you get that? Rather than me read it to you.
All right, had a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Now, we will move on to our next public hearing. Again, this is not a quasi-judicial hearing, so no need for anyone to be sworn in. It is CZ-21-06, Marion Woods. The applicant is requesting to rezone one parcel of land totaling 31.56 acres from R8 residential and R20A residential agriculture zoning district to the R8 CZ conditional zoning district for the construction of a 143-lot residential subdivision. The property is considered for rezoning, is located on the north side of North Carolina Highway 210, approximately 1,300 feet west of its intersection with Skyland Drive. The property is further identified as Johnston County Tax ID 150-77008. This time I will entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Stephen, turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you. So Strong Rock Engineering, PPLC, is requesting this development rezoning. The development parcel is 31.56 acres of a 57.76 acre parcel. They're just developing the high ground, and the lowland will remain with the current owner. This is the development parcel. You can see the larger parcel that extends further to the north. To the north, it's R20A, R10 zoning, some detached single-family, and then lots of wetlands in between. To the south is R20A and B3. We got detached single-family, residential, agricultural, some kind of low-density residential along NC 210. To the east, R20A and heavy industrial. The heavy industrial is Keener Lumber. And to the west, R20A, single-family and wetlands. Point out on this one, we're looking at development about 400 new residents based on 2.8 persons per unit for population impacts. There will be park dedication with the final plat. Sewer and water would be Town of Smithfield, electrical would be Duke. This is the development master plan. Got a more detailed slide. But I already talked about the 31.56 acres. The property is located within Neuse River Basin and within the floodplain of the Swift Creek. So much of that lowland is Swift Creek floodplain. They are developing just the upland. Stormwater pond will encroach into the 100-year floodplain. This is the floodplain map showing the 100-year and 500-year floodplains. The finished grade for each lot will be at least 2 feet above the base flood elevation of the 100-year. Check that out. So this is the site plan. There's a divided entrance into the site. There's a landscape median on Road A. Road A extends back to the second road. All the roads are, I believe, can't read the number here, 29 feet, edge of pavement to edge of pavement, so it does meet our town standards for road width. In a 60-foot right-of-way, which is our town standard. The townhouses are to the north of Road A. The single-family homes are to the south and to the west. And you can see the DOT improvements along NC 210. And the cul-de-sac on Road D, there's a condition attached regarding that cul-de-sac because of the long length of Road D. Road D exceeds our 750-foot requirement, or maximum length. And the reason it extends that way, it's the only way they can access all the high ground given the constraints of this property. And the fire code has this larger cul-de-sac bulb requirement as a result. And they've met that standard. The intersection of Road D to Road C is, it's not a perpendicular intersection. Again, there are constraints that would require filling of the floodplain, so that is why the configuration is the way it is. There's a small park along the south side of Road A, and the mail kiosk is in the right-of-way along the north side of Road A. The town land use plan guides this site for medium density residential, and this does meet that density requirement. This site is accessed off of Highway 210. The access is directly across from our new public park. That is something staff made sure of so that it's essentially an intersection when that park gets developed. A temporary emergency access is being provided on the eastern edge of the property, kind of north on the plan by the townhouses. That is to address fire code. That will not be necessary if the development on the adjacent property considered as Youngblood's property. That's what it's being, I think that's the owner's name, Youngblood. If that develops, this temporary access can go away. And there are currently sketch plans in my office for that site, connecting up to this site, and should that move forward, we will not require them to build this emergency access. So these are the street sections. So 34 feet back to back, as required by code. So they are building a typical town street. Kind of throughout the development. There's a detail of the entryway. Two 14-foot lanes with a divided landscape median and a 60-foot right-of-way with sidewalks. And then they've got an example of the enlarged cul-de-sac also on the slide. Covered that. There will be standard B612 curbs everywhere except for right in front of the townhouse units. They're proposing valley curbs from 10 feet within the side of a townhouse unit to 10 feet on the other side of a townhouse building. So in front of the buildings, plus 10 feet will be valley curb. The rest of the development will be B612. That's what they're proposing.
Is B612 a different kind of curb?
That's the standard concrete raised curb that we have all over town. And the valley curb is the mountable curb.
And that's not something you told them to do, it's something that they asked to do?
The town standard is the B612. In the past, we've allowed valley curbs, and there's a lot of neighborhoods with valley curbs. Valley curb is more of a suburban style. When the house gets developed, you often see a B612 curb get destroyed or removed to put in a driveway. In this case, with the valley curb where the townhouses go, they don't have to replace that curb. Roughly 33% of the site will remain undeveloped in open space. This area is comprised of streams, wetlands, ponds, floodplain, and buffers. And it includes a 50.53 acre tot lot recreation area next to the entrance, as I described earlier. Protected stream is within the protected stream with a 50-foot riparian buffer is shown on the plan, and that's outside of the area they're really developing. They are proposing a walking trail crossing this at 2 locations. So they'll need NCDEQ for approval for that walking trail. Just statistics on area within the development. I'm not going to go through this. How much water line, how many streets, lineal feet of sidewalks, etc. Impervious. Total impervious for the site is roughly 31.40%. They are proposing a single-family residential area, 20-foot front setbacks, where typical R8 standards are 30, 5 feet on the side, where typical R8 standards are 10, rear 20-foot setback, where the standard setback is 25. So reduced setbacks, and from the public right-of-way to the garage face would be 20 feet. For the townhomes, they're proposing a 20-foot front setback, a zero lot line development, so the townhouse is going to be attached, and 20-foot rear setback. Corner side yards would be 20, and the garage would be 20 feet off the public right-of-way. And setbacks for multifamily are determined through SUPs or conditional zoning, so they're asking for those setbacks through this approval. And this is a detail of the typical townhouse block. You can zoom in, shows 20-foot setback, how the garages and the open space between the garages and driveways would be arranged, and some landscaping and a 20-foot rear setback. Forgot to mention, end units are going to be 22 feet wide versus 20 on the interior. Here's just a typical, they're proposing at a minimum a 2-foot grass strip between driveways when you have 2 garage doors side by side, such as in this example. The distance between buildings will be roughly 12 to 14 feet, whereas Floyd Landing had 30 as a comparison. Here's another example. For the single-family area, they're proposing minimum lot size of 5,882 square feet, whereas in the R8 district, it's 8,000. They're proposing an average lot size of, 7,500, 0.17 acres. Maximum lot size is 14,646. Minimum lot width is 55 feet. We just approved 45 feet for Floyd Landing, and the R8 standard is 70. 80% of the homes will be two-car garages. In the townhouse areas, the units will be 20 feet wide, with the end units being 22. Minimum lot width, therefore, is 20. Lot size is 21,000 square feet. Average lot size, 0.17 acres. One-car garages for all the units. So we have a standard in our code that requires for various heights a greater distance between buildings. I just wanted to bring this forward. They are proposing 16 feet. I guess I had 12 to 14. It looks like a 16. Sorry about that. That was an update that I forgot to update on the slide. Actual building wall to building wall will be 16 feet. In our standard code, that would allow for a building to be 20 feet or less in height. So they are asking for a deviation, bringing the buildings closer together than our multifamily standards allow. All the buildings will be meeting the 35-foot height standard. They're proposing 5-foot sidewalks in the public right-of-way along all streets, including along Highway 210. They are showing sidewalks at the back of curb with no utility strip in some locations on the plan. I believe it's probably an error on the plan, but it should be made a condition that the sidewalk be located outside the 5-foot utility strip, meeting our standard. They are proposing 4 parking spaces for each detached single-family home, so that would be generally 2 in the garage and 2 in the driveway. 80% of the homes will have 2-car garages, so there will be some that will have a little bit less. UDO requires 188 off-street parking, 2 units for each, 2 spaces for each townhouse unit. The master plan shows 289 parking spaces, 3.05 per unit, but that includes on and off-street parking. 188 spaces will be in the garages and driveway. There'll be 24 in overflow and 77 on the street. They've indicated, they got an exhibit on the next slide I'll show you that shows where on-street parking can be provided. Within a 20-foot setback, there will be some instances where larger vehicles could overhang into the public right-of-way and interfere with sidewalks. The overflow parking currently on the plan, staff doesn't believe it quite meets town standards. There is space where they can fix that and address that issue. They are proposing 12 parking stalls in that. The green lines indicate where on-street parking can be provided. And they provided the number. 77 on-street parking spaces. The project is proposing a small tot lot and a natural area with walking trail. As I said earlier, there'll be a hedge provided between the backyards and the play area, provide a separation. The plan does meet the recreational requirements of the code. The project is proposing a 15-foot bermed landscape buffer adjacent to US NC 210. The landscape plan provides 1 tree outside the public right-of-way per single-family home, and 1 street tree per every 2 townhome lots. The perimeter buffer has been provided on the west property line, where there's an existing home nearby, but not on the east side where a future development is proposed. The 13-foot wide entrance median does not show any landscaping in the current exhibits. However, they've described it as a landscape median, and it would be maintained by an HOA, and that should be made a condition of approval. This is the landscape plan, buffering plan, and berming plan. I can zoom in on berm detail. The landscaping would be going up and down the berm with the height more or less in the center of the berm.
Mr. Winsman, can you go back just a couple slides where you had the street parking line? The section, that was it. The road where the cul-de-sac is, that essentially is a road with parking just in the middle there, right? Go back to the bottom right corner, bring it. You see where they got the diagonal parking?
In the center, the parking lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, that's a cut through too, right? I think
Yeah,
that's
it's a one-way, it's a one-way parking lot.
Is that part of the off-site or on-site, or do you know?
That's the off-site parking, 24 stalls, I believe. Dumpster and trash facilities are shown, sorry, no dumpster or trash facilities are shown on the plan. All lots can be served by rollouts. Trash containers can become a landscape feature in townhouse developments if they're not planned for. And so staff is recommending there be a requirement that, a condition that the storage of the rollouts should be in a garage or a rear yard as part of the HOA covenants. The mail kiosk has been shown at the end of Road A with 8 on-street parking stalls, providing, access, and that's on-street parking for the mail kiosk. You can see it in the exhibit I've got on the right. Stormwater management will be contained within the 100-year floodplain, which is shown on the master plan. They've provided an example of a typical subdivision sign that they're expecting to build for this development. They are willing to, they were going to be providing some decorative elements, street signs, street lighting, such as in this exhibit below. And the HOA will provide common ownership of all shared open space, landscaping, stormwater, and other amenities. They have provided architectural standards. This is an example of what they expect the townhouses to look like, at least the architecture. The garages may be flipped to maximize green space between units. And these are the single-family elevations, what they're expecting to build. And these are not exactly what they're going to build, but very suggestive of the materials and sizes and types of construction.
Stephen, did you say what they recommended the proposed square footage of the houses, single family? You mentioned that.
I believe it was in my earlier exhibit. I probably didn't go through it. I can go, let me go through this and I'll go back.
That's fine.
to it.
Yeah, no problem.
On the next page, you get to it.
So this is an exhibit showing the requested deviations from code. They're looking for smaller lot size, single-family lot width, setbacks are reduced, side yard setbacks reduced for both the single-family and the townhomes. Distance between townhomes, 16 feet versus the 30 feet. They were asking for some valley curbs where B6 12 curbs are required, and they were asking for a long cul-de-sac of about 800 feet versus 750 feet, which is the standard.
Even that distance between townhomes,
Yep,
you've got the UDO is 16 feet.
Now, the UDO is 30 to 40.
30 to 40 for UDO.
You
Oh,
want-
I got it flipped.
No,
I'm sorry.
that says 16 feet
Yeah, sorry.
for UDO and 30 to 40,
My apologies.
which is what you just said.
He's
Those
got
numbers
flipped.
are flipped.
He's got
Yeah.
flipped.
And it's 30 to 40, because I don't know exactly how tall these buildings are.
Right. But they're requesting 16 feet.
They're asking for
Our
16.
UDO requires a minimum of 30.
Yeah, for that type of development. This is an exhibit showing what they're doing above and beyond code. They're having some open space with walking trails. They're going to provide enhanced streetlights and street signs, landscape berm along 210, street trees, a sidewalk on both sides of the streets. They're going to exceed the townhome recreation requirements, proposing a decorative entry sign and landscaping, architectural standards, and enhanced entrance off of NC 210. This is a staff's opinion, a consistency statement. They are consistent with the comp plan. They are consistent with the UDO. The conditional zoning is a give and take. And there has been give and take, and it's really a degree of whether the development meets the council's vision. The property considered for rezoning will be compatible with the surrounding land uses. Staff is recommending the council table this development, giving the council some additional time to revise the master plan, or if the council finds they need to deny it, they could deny it. Essentially, the concerns are, again, still based on the vision provided by Floyd's Landing and the comments from Floyd's Landing. There's less on-street parking, there's less off-street parking with this development. The units are tighter together. The townhouse lots are not as wide. And that's essentially the flaws. And so really, staff is interested in the town council's comments on this, and I'm sure the developer would also like to get some feedback. They have a short presentation they would like to make, if that's okay, and I'm going to address the mayor's question about the size of units. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah.
Yeah. You want me to go ahead? You say they have a presentation?
Yep.
The developer would like to come forward. Are there any questions at this time though from the council for Stephen, for the developer? If you will, please state your name and address for the record.
Zach Anderson, 6801 Falls of Noose Road in Raleigh. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I appreciate you having us out tonight to present our case, and hopefully our fate won't be the same as that bug crawling across the table there.
He's still wiggling.
So we're excited to present our request for rezoning to R8 conditional zoning tonight. I start with saying that I attended a developers roundtable meeting recently with the Triangle Business Journal. And you know, many of the topics included there were housing availability, housing affordability. When asked, you know, some of these folks, what we could do to solve that, it's A, build our way out of it, and B, we've got to allow density in these neighborhoods. The cost of infrastructure has just gotten so crazy right now that unless there is some density concessions given, then it's going to make it hard for people to afford a house. Folks like me, folks like my mom who's a nurse, or friends that are firemen or policemen, teachers. That's very near and dear to my heart. So when I come before these council meetings and present my projects, I don't come as a builder. a home builder that's trying to make as much money as I can. I come as a developer that's looking to work with municipalities and present the best project that I can. So, again, back to the meeting I went to, building our way out of this problem and increasing density. It doesn't solve a lot of the problems like materials, cost, and availability, but tonight we're here to solve the issues that we can. It's been a pleasure working with staff over the last few months, lots of back and forth, up until even earlier today when we discussed some other changes we might include tonight. On a personal note, I've watched Smithfield grow and change over the years. I've been trying unsuccessfully to get a project through to this point for maybe 5 years now. And in that time, I've seen many great changes that have spurred growth and opened your arms up to the wider world to say, hey, come to Smithfield. It's a great place to live and work. And it's been a pleasure to watch that happen. So again, I received a little more feedback from Stephen Tennant earlier today that I'd like to memorialize tonight and request approval. Do you have a clicker?
I'm gonna have to do, if you can advance these, why don't you just point it, I'll move them.
Yeah, so we're requesting to rezone 31 acres out of a larger parcel that the seller would retain the lowlands and some uplands that are ancillary to his other land. Currently, most of the site is R8. Most of the site that we plan to develop is R8. We're looking for conditional districts on that with 94 townhomes and 49 single-family lots. Amongst the 31 acres, over 30% of the site we plan to have as open space, and that's including the wetlands, some of the floodplains, but also just common areas, space the HOA maintains, and the top. Next slide here. This is our site plan, which you've seen before. Go on to the next one. Our landscape plan, I heard through the other meetings, of course, there is a desire for more than what's in the code today. So we've provided a larger buffer along 210 there, in addition to a 25-foot right-of-way dedication from what's there today. We've got a sidewalk in that right-of-way dedication, a 15-foot buffer, and we stole this semi-opaque landscaping standard from Apex. So it's a hefty buffer with a mix of hardwoods and evergreens, shrubs, and other ground planting. To the plan south here, adjacent to, well, there's not a residential tract directly adjacent, but it's not far. We've shown a 10-foot buffer where none is required with, I can't read that down there, a type C buffer, which has a certain number of plantings in a certain distance. Within the site, we've got street tree plantings on the property lines that the HOA would enforce those plantings and make sure nobody cuts down the trees. So they are inside the property line so that the town doesn't have to come out and enforce those street tree requirements. You can go to the next one. In terms of parking, I know it's a sensitive issue. I drive a big truck. I measured it today. It's 19 feet, which fits into the standard parking space in the town. We're providing not only a garage, a driveway, but also off-street parking, the 24 spots there, and on-street parking. Additionally, we've got the full-size streets, not like the other project had. So there will be more room for on-street parking. But also, one of the conditions that we're proposing is clustering the driveways together so that there's ample room in front of the units for folks to park. So I've got another exhibit in the next page there.
Ready to move?
Yeah, go ahead and I can come back. Well, it might be a little bit further on. There we go. So the driveways are are clustered together, so you've got a left-hand drive with a right-hand drive, left hand with a right hand. So there's room in between units to park there, as well as room in between buildings, on the sides of buildings where the fronts don't face the right-of-way, and off-street parking. So you can go back to there. Oh, one more. The off-street parking, we're working on that with Stephen. So the plan we had showed a 12-foot driveway with 35-degree parking. Stephen has expressed an interest in either 30 or 45 degree parking there. So we'll adjust to a 45-degree parking and adjust the driveway width with the town standard here. And make sure that they meet town code as well. So with the on-street parking in front of units, everything else, and not letting anybody park in the cul-de-sacs, we've got over 3 parking spaces per unit. If you take out, any of the parking in front of buildings, we've still got 2.56 parking spaces per unit. We can go on to the next one. Some of the other conditions that we're giving up in our request, townhomes will be 2-story with a minimum width of 20 feet wide. Minimum square footage is 1,250 and 1-car garage. So these will be 2 or 3 bedroom townhomes. All homes will have a combination of 2 different facade materials, so it's brick, stone, lap, shake, or board and batten. Corner units shall have decorative trim or door for each 30 feet of continuous side elevation, or fireplaces, side porches, or wall offsets. All garages will have either windows or the decorative style carriage adornments. Single-family homes will all have a garage. Minimum 80% of them will have 2-car garage. In order to promote a variation in appearance, no adjacent home may use the same color siding, and for single-family detached homes, no front elevation shall be used directly next door or across the street. So it's a bit of an anti-monotony clause there that shows that every home's a little different throughout the neighborhood. You may have a similar floor plan, but you wouldn't be able to tell it from the front. Consistent color palette should be used throughout the neighborhood with both the townhomes and single-family homes. HOA will mandate and enforce hours when trash and recycling rollouts are visible, and they shall be stored otherwise in the garage or the patio. And townhome driveways will be clustered to allow for on-street parking. We'll also include decorative signage and signage for the entrance. This is illustrative of the townhomes we're planning to use. We don't have a builder in mind right now. We've got 3 or 4 that we typically work with, and that's why occasionally some of these items might be broad, or like you see here, this shows the architectural features that we're going for, the windows, multiple types of facade materials. Go on to the next one. The separation between townhome units, I understand. For us, it's an interpretation issue. So in this is a pullout from the UDO here. The minimum separation between buildings is 16 feet from the vertical projections. So we plan to have hipped roofs, so the slopes go to the side on the end units, so that at the end of the building, there's no more than 20 feet of vertical projection, as shown here. So from building to building, there will be 16 feet is what we're requesting, and no more than 20 feet at the ends of those buildings. Go to the next one here. And this is just showing kind of townhome separation throughout the triangle. Most municipalities have a limit of 10 feet between, so that folks can get through with their trash, or they can get to the back of their yards, or the HOA can maintain the backs. But we're suggesting 16 here. Single-family homes, again, just illustrative product that we've, builders that we've worked with in the past. This meets the architectural conditions that we're requesting. And from the planning board meeting, there were a number of suggestions and comments that we attempted to accommodate for. So we realigned a few of the roads, added a median, added more on-street and off-street parking, stubbed the trail system to the potential development project to the east. We increased the dedication on Highway 210 to 25 feet to accommodate for future widening, and provided a mountable curb for the fire access road if it is to be constructed. We also added a condition for townhome driveways being clustered so that you can allow for more parking. We increased corner setbacks of the buildings. We increased the rear setbacks of the townhomes. And some other, we added street trees that will be maintained by the HOA, and provided a landscape plan designed by a landscape architect, a licensed landscape architect. And just a few clarifications. The side setbacks of the townhomes will be 2 feet. Obviously buildings will be attached, but on the ends, if it's a corner end, it'll be 20 feet. If it's an interior end, it'll be 2 feet. The open space between units will be 12, so minimum 16 feet of separation between buildings there. The curb and gutter in the parking, the off-street parking, we will put curb and gutter in the off-street parking. And the one thing we talked about today is obviously parking is a concern throughout, especially with townhomes. We're willing to go to 25-foot front setbacks throughout the neighborhood, single family and townhomes. Given the environmental constraints of this project with the wetlands and the floodplains in the back, it would drastically affect the lot count and therefore affordability in this neighborhood, going all the way to 30. That just pushes us over the line into losing lots. So 25 feet we think is a good concession. You'd be able to fit my truck at least, and hopefully anybody else's except for the fire departments. So.
Any questions? Yeah, I had a question. I had a couple of questions. When Stephen was doing his presentation, there was about the utility easement between the curb and gutter and the
utility strip. Utility strip.
Could you go to the parking sheet there? The area where I think there's a disconnect there is in front of the park and the mail kiosk. We've got a much wider street section there as a grander entrance into the neighborhood. So Street A there is a much wider pavement section. So we've done that, the sidewalk butts right up to the curb there because there's a wider street section.
I think the long cul-de-sac also shows a sidewalk on the edge of curb also in the single-family area.
Okay, and we can accommodate that, certainly.
And the other question I had to do about the curb and gutter.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the valley is probably easier to install and all that, I understand, so it's cheaper, but is there a real difference in the functionality of the curb and gutter? Going somewhere with this.
Stormwater wise?
Yeah.
I think is Bill still here?
Bill designed to accommodate the curb. So we'd obviously prefer to go one curb type throughout the neighborhood. The valley curb makes it so that you don't have 1,000 curb cuts throughout the neighborhood.
Yeah, especially townhouses when they're that far apart, yeah.
Our guidance was go with the stand-up curb throughout the neighborhood, limit the valley curb in front of the townhomes. We're fine either way. We'd like to keep that valley curb at least in front of the townhomes so we don't have tons of curb cuts.
Yeah. In the example you showed, there were two different, there were two back-to-back slides. That one actually has the curb.
Curb and
The
gutter.
driveways are further apart than that one. You said you're gonna almost double stack with a strip in between. So I can understand why that would be not functional to do it like that. Going back, if you don't mind. Right there. On the bottom one, it has a valley curb, except for in between between the two opposing end units. And there's actually a storm drain there.
Right. And they've done that to accommodate for that type of storm inlet box. So if that inlet box wasn't there, they would have a straight valley curb between units.
It would not, though, one of the issues with the valley curve is that people ride over it. And so you got people parking on the sidewalk, right? Because they don't want to be in the street, so we got people parking over the curbs now, they're right up on the curbs already, which tears up our curbs, that's one of the issues we had. So the question, if you had the valley curves, were they not right into the yard, park up on the yard and? I'm just saying that's what I'm saying, isn't that one of the reasons for having the curb and gutter is to keep people on the road and not on the sidewalk?
I've developed quite a few of these neighborhoods with just pure valley curb. It doesn't seem to be an issue as long as you have a strong HOA. And most of these builders absolutely want to keep their.
Well, I understand that the HOA is strong enough, it takes one good person in the neighborhood, and then you won't want to do it, so.
Right. So it's fairly standard now throughout, the triangle at least in Charlotte where I've seen it, but I'm open to suggestions. I just suggest maybe keeping that in front of the townhome so that we don't have a ton of.
Stephen, do you have?
Yeah, I just want to make a point that I think we see the cars parking up on the boulevard more so when we have the narrow streets, and they are proposing a full-size street, which people won't be so afraid to park in the street.
For stormwater issues, if they're parked in the valley, is that going to hinder our water flow?
It's the same either way, because you can park in the valley in a B612 curb also. If your tires are up against the curb, you're doing the exact same thing.
Guarantee the children would love to have a valley curb over the regular decrease.
Do you have any issues with the B6, as it's proposed right now? We do have issues in some of our new subdivisions right now with people, I've got pictures right here, with people parking on the sidewalks, on the grass, in the right of way, and so forth, so, without that curbing. So do you have any issues with it throughout the neighborhood except for, and I'm assuming you're doing it valley in front of the townhomes to help provide for that additional parking, is that correct?
Yeah. Between the parking and
the
just
curb cuts and so forth.
The concrete finish work.
Right. So can you just explain though, because obviously parking is a concern, right? And I'm not sure this really, with the 24, you said 24 additional, Stephen?
Yeah, that's
and
the
then
little.
I think you made the comment you're not sure that fully addresses the off-street parking, but can you explain what you mean by the off-street parking? What is that? Are they actually going to be parking spaces, or it's just because?
They'll just fit on the street.
Okay.
Between driveways.
And then there is that off-street parking lot there that's got the angled parking.
But so no additional true parking spaces except for those 24. I'm just trying to make sure. Well, I'm trying to understand what you're saying as far as the off-street parking. And only thing you're saying is it's a full width street per our UDO, which would allow for additional parking on the street and then still be wide enough for emergency vehicles and so forth to get through. Is that basically what we're saying there?
And then
there won't be lined spots or anything on the street, will there? Or will
there's eight lined, marked out spots in front of the mail kiosk there.
Additional in front of the,
Yeah.
in front of the mill, right. But the majority of the green space there is basically just parking on the street.
Right.
Okay. And then, so the other question I had, and this is going back to our previous subdivision that we had, as far as the driveways, and I know this has all been stated and so forth, and you mentioned the length of your truck, but the townhomes, and this may be a question for Stephen, the parking for the townhomes, right? So will that allow for 2 vehicles in the driveway as proposed?
25-foot setback, no. It'd be one in the driveway, one in the garage. With 20-foot, you still often end up with people kind of overhanging sidewalks.
Right.
If he was to go to a 25, you really truly have cars off the public right-of-way.
And the previous subdivision, they went to what?
They went to 30.
30 feet, which did basically alleviate that problem. I just, again, experience tells me that people aren't going to park that far, even with the overflow there, and there's only 24 spots, and you're proposing let's see, 94 townhomes, that the parking will be, again, a concern, for this. So.
The 25-foot would fix the problem.
I'm sorry?
You said 25-foot would fix the problem.
No, 25 will just make it a better driveway.
25 will allow one
Because I think you
spot
mentioned
without
if
any
we went-
overhang, but we'll also have the driveways,
I
or
think
the
you mentioned
garages.
If we went to 30, it's not even feasible for the size of the project,
Right,
layout of the land.
right. Just given the environmental constraints here, it just pushes us into those wetlands in the back.
Well, if
Losing.
you say it's feasible as how it's currently laid out.
Without,
Possibly,
there's also.
you have to give up some units, right?
Losing rear yard setbacks. But, I think for most people, that rear yard is much more precious than the front, especially with townhome buyers.
What about the berm for 210? And that was one of the things that we had a concern about. We've had concern about looking in the backyards at people's houses. And that's not something we like seeing. That was one of the things that the other previous applicant who presented decided to do. They added a fence which blocks it. So they went to, I think, a Class D berm. We figured that out, right? Class D berm, which included a fence that was that also prevented any viewing from the road to there. It also gives uniformity across that road. So I've been to communities that have those white fences that are blocking the people's viewing in the backyard, and the whole neighborhood looks better. You're not seeing into people's backyards. You're not seeing the junk. People put stuff. I put junk in my backyard, and I have a privacy fence I just put up so people didn't see. I'd have to see my neighbor's junk in their backyard. You understand? So I'm saying is people going to put junk in their backyard. That's just because they don't want to put it in their front yard. So having some way of preventing everybody from coming by, it makes the entire community look better. So my question is that something you might be willing to consider, is increasing that berm on 210 to like a Class D, which would include a fence?
Yeah, I'd say that this isn't 70, right? It's 210, it's a different traffic, it's a different view into the town. Additionally, we're gonna go with this semi-opaque buffer. It's very dense. But I think you're right, we'd be willing to throw in a type D buffer in there to add some uniformity there.
Especially as we just talked about how we're looking at how can we go forward with requirements that we want to make as we compromise on things, to your point, to make housing more affordable, well, keeping the housing down as low as possible, but it's also maximizing the revenue of those people that are creating these projects too. I understand that. I mean, you gotta make a living. I understand that. So, how do we gain uniformity? And I think one of the things that we can do too, we've really had a concern with some of our developments that we've seen with that looking in the backyard. So I think that's something we really ought to be looking at. So I appreciate your willingness to look at that.
Along that same line, on the berm, you said it's a 15-foot base width of the berm. How high does that equate to?
With the
4 feet, maybe?
3 to 1 slopes in there that are maintainable, it'd be about 3 feet tall. Yeah, so with a shelf on top so you can get the upper story trees planted. That fence would be probably 6 feet.
That would be maintained by the HOA, right?
That's correct. Everything with the townhomes will be maintained by the HOA, the yards.
And the burn's not even part of their yards, it is part of the common land.
Nope, yeah, it's open space that's outside of the lots.
For your townhomes, would you be proposing to sell these?
They would be for sale. We wouldn't be the builders here. We're just the developers. So whoever bought it from us would likely be a for sale builder. They'd be fee simple, so individual lots here, not like one long unit.
I didn't know if you yourself were thinking of building some and keeping them yourself to rent out.
No.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? I think it's a good project. Again, my concern personally is the parking, because that's what I hear most about. And I don't see what you're proposing for this townhome being different than the townhome subdivision that we just looked at when they made the concessions to change, right? So I understand the comment about affordable housing. We need it. But we need a mix of homes, right? And we've got lots of subdivisions coming in. Speaking of that, do you know what square footage houses would be proposed, single family?
For the single family, it'd be anywhere between, given this lot size and what I know of the industry, anywhere from 1,600 square feet to 3,200 that you could fit on these lots.
3,200?
Yeah, with 2-story.
It'd be tight. But yeah, so, I mean, obviously, that would be my concern. I'd say typically in a mixed-use project, you're looking at roughly something like this, about 40% townhomes, and this is about 66% townhomes. So your typical build-out of a mixed-use would be about 40% townhome. And that's just roughly speaking, right? Which also increases that density, and I understand it from a developer's standpoint, but we also need to be thoughtful of sewer. And the more density that we're putting in, we do have to consider the sewer allocation that we have, and that is, we have a lot going on in this area right now, and our sewer capacity is quickly being diminished, right? So, but again, my main concern would be the parking, especially for the townhomes.
Do you have any suggestions here? I mean, we've got the full-size streets that are different than the other project. We've got the off-site parking there.
Yeah, and I understand the off-street parking, but do we want to go into a neighborhood that's full of cars lined up on the street constant, parking there constantly? I don't know. That's something to consider, right? Is that really what we want, is a neighborhood that's going to have just parking lined up on both sides of the street? It doesn't matter how wide the streets are, right? Unless it's true parking. Otherwise, I think it's good subdivision. Any other questions, comments for the developer at this time? Not seeing any at this time. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this matter? If you will, please come forward. Not seeing anyone. All right. Any other comments for Stephen before we close the public hearing? Not, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Mr. Mayor, I remember what I think we did last time with Floyd's Landing it was a very good move for us to table that for a month, to give them time to think through some of these things that we brought up and had concern, and they brought back to us a much better plan than they had originally. after hearing our comments and others, and I think that's the reason why we were more easily to approve as we went forward. So I'm gonna move that we table the zoning amendment CZ 2106 for the month and bring it back at next month, give an opportunity to address some of these issues that we brought up.
Oh. So I got a motion. Do I have a second to? Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so we will table this until next month. Yes, sir.
You didn't hear when we called for citizens' comments probably about 2 hours ago? So, I mean.
Right. So, one second. So we do have another hearing. Do we need to go through this one? I mean, I guess since we tabled this, there's no need to do this next hearing. Is that correct? That's correct. All right. Okay. You guys have any issues with that? I don't have. Is there something you need to pass out, ma'am? Is there some?
I didn't realize it was at the first of the agenda.
Right.
So can I take 2 minutes and leave?
Hold on one second, Stephen.
The next item, we should probably formally table it to the next meeting as well.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to open it and then table it. Bob says yes.
Bob, it's quasi judicial hearing. Just go ahead and do that.
I'll make a motion that we table S 2103 Marwood subdivision until next meeting.
Okay, have a motion to have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, ma'am, 3 minutes.
Mary Moody, a tenant at Austin Manor for 20 years, and I'm privileged to live in walking distance of the library, the post office, the bank, the diner, all of that. So I'm very grateful that I've been a citizen for 20 years. And Smithfield Tenant Bill of Rights and the Smithfield Home Guarantee. And I just picked up 6 of these at the library, but it'll describe, and I plan on coming the 3rd Tuesday, whatever, and bring some more of these. And so, anyway, in short, 1, it's a Bill of Rights for tenants and home guarantee, the rent. And tune in 1st and 3rd Tuesday meetings to speak in public comment in support of the tenant rights. 3, and homes guarantee. Share my experience as a tenant for the last 31 years. And 4, finally, see the resources in the current free triangle press to fight gentrification, I can't say the word, gentrification, to build a better world. And all these, since COVID-19, they got money. Emergency rental assistance, legal aid, eviction, civil justice clinic, mutual aid networks, hope funding portal for landlords, and a stop eviction network. And of course, it gives in detail. And each one of these have a hot phone number and a website to, would you just triple it them and I'll read some more on the 3rd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Thank you, Ms. Moody. Appreciate it. All right, I think that is the last public hearing that we have. Comments? Council members' comments? Anybody have anything?
I've got a few, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd definitely like to thank the council for giving some attention to Cedar Drive. I go back to August the 15th anyway. They definitely did pour. In fact, I had just seen Councilman Wood over at Smith Collins Park. We had met up, he brought some school supplies or whatever. But another issue that's definitely going on that's affecting Belmont is whenever we do get them floods, whenever we have to, pull the rails down the underhead path, all that traffic is coming through Belmont, all kinds of vehicles and everything, and it would seem like the easy fix would be, especially with the traffic coming from the 95 area coming into town, would be to go ahead and divert them on College Road all the way down and possibly taking a right on Martin Luther King, then the left on Lee Street and possibly over, because all that traffic that's definitely coming through Belmont, it's a hassle. And if somebody actually lives in Belmont and they decide they're gonna take a left, probably go to Durham Street, all that traffic is gonna follow them thinking, that's the way out. So that last time it did rain, as I was kind of riding through, getting some video, taking pictures and stuff, it was a hassle. It was a big hassle. So this is something, I don't know who would need to look into that, but it's a hassle whenever we do get them rains and traffic is diverted. The other thing I want to pay some attention to, I'm not going to go into full detail tonight, which, got plenty of information. Is Cheap Power still out there? Pretty much we got two chiefs in here because we got the former chief in here, who now is our town manager. And as I say, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail with what's going on, but I just want to tell the public that I'm going to meet with these two gentlemen, and there are some serious issues going on within our police department, especially over in East Smithfield. It's nothing that nobody has told me, but there was an incident that happened in in front of my parents' house, July 16th, and I was there to kind of witness it. And also, August the 15th, that same day, probably after you left, Councilman Wood, things have been happening, and I'm not going to bring it up. It's no need to bring it up, but I want to make some solutions, because a lot of the same stuff even go back to when I now town manager was the police chief. So I just want the public to know that we're going to sit down and we're gonna make some things happen, because it ain't really nothing nobody told me. I've seen it with my own eyes. So I just want everybody to know, it's not about putting it out there, but it's about fixing it. So I just want everybody to know.
Anyone else?
I have a few quick comments. First of all, I would like to give a huge shout out to Parks and Rec downtown for the River Rat Regatta that took place. That was a huge successful event, and lots of camaraderie, creativity. That thing's got a lot of potential. I think it was Mike Scott's idea initially, but it's fantastic. Didn't come this year, you need to come next year. It's fantastic. And the other thing I wanted to bring back to the table was, we spoke about it before. I think we asked the manager to look into it, but it was a DOT right-of-way mowing along Buffalo Road and some areas in town. The new road, it looks absolutely horrible. Can we revisit that? We actually talked about contracting that and let them refund us or whatever, reimburse the town. That's the only two things I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of things. One thing is I do need to know, to see some movement on our stormwater plans, because we're still looking to see what we need to do for sidewalks on Mills Mills Road. I have to mention that periodically, because it seems like we've kind of died down on it, and we're not going to let it die. It's a need for our community in West Smithfield, and we need it fixed. We need to see what needs to be done, at least to get that evaluation done. So we need to move forward, whenever we're waiting for the stormwater plan to decide on what could be done, and so I don't know when that's gonna happen, but, you see when we're gonna move forward with that, because time's running out. The other issue is, on a lighter note, we do have, the drone park now has a fenced-in area. There's a sign out there. It does not have our equipment yet. That's something that we were planning to put out there. We have some equipment for people to use when they go out there to fly. We do have scheduled October the 2nd from 1 to 4, something called a drone fly-in. And we have a company by the name of 910 Drones will be here. They'll be doing drone demonstrations of a variety of types of drones. Roger, you look out your back door. We're going to be having, there's going to be some drones they can fly, so the kids can come and fly. So if you're interested in drones, don't know anything about drones, want to learn about drones, that'll be an opportunity. Our hopes is that we'll have the fixture stuff in place, so then afterwards people can fly. They'll be from 1 to 4. If it's rain, we're going to move to October the 9th. So we are planning on from 1 to 4. We would like to have a ribbon cutting at 12 o'clock. I haven't talked to the mayor about this yet, but we are looking at doing something at 12 to 1, and then having the drone, fly-in. I have several schools from, I have schools from Fayetteville and from Hope County and from Johnson County already interested in planning to be there. As we know, one of the reasons why we implemented this is because it is an interest, and the tourism people actually pay for the fence to be finished built, the tourism dollars, because it will draw traffic into our area. So we're looking forward to that, and that's where we are on that.
Anyone else? So, a couple things. So, Mike, will you check on the traffic situation that Marlon was talking about, Councilman Lee was talking about when the rain? I think that's actually a very good suggestion. We can check on that. And Councilman Lee, I'm assuming you'll get with the manager and chief on your other. October 2nd, I believe NC State has a football game, so depending on what time that is, I'm not sure I'd be able to make the ribbon cutting, so I might have to call upon the Mayor Pro Tem or maybe yourself to do that, Councilman Barber. But again, it would all hinge on the timing of that football game. Apologies, but and then one thing I did want to say is we've got the 20th anniversary of 9/11 coming up, and I think it's important to reflect on that. And so many people lost lives during that time, and just going about their daily activities, whether it was work or whether it was walking down the street, or the firemen, the EMS, and police who were just doing their jobs. And my kids, they never visited the Twin Towers. In fact, weren't even born. I think it's very good to keep that, especially on the 20th anniversary, in our minds, and what that meant on that day as Americans. And so I would just like to take this time to thank, publicly, all our employees, but especially our fire, our police, and our EMS personnel, not only in Smithfield, but throughout Johnston County, North Carolina, and throughout the United States, and especially in New York. And let's take time on September 11th to remember that. And I believe on the 10th, Smithfield Selma is having their annual celebration, and I usually attend that. It's not open to the public, but it's a really good celebration, and I thank you for our local EMS, fire, and police departments. So I just encourage people to take a few minutes on September 11th and maybe just stop for a few seconds of what you're doing and just reflect on that moment. Councilman Scott, I agree with you as far as the River Rat Regatta. I wasn't able to attend, but I saw plenty of pictures of it, and looked like it was even better than the one that we had previously where I was there. So again, that was an awesome event. So yes, I agree with you. Thank you very much for bringing that up. I think that's all that I have as far as comments go. We do need to go into closed session, so I will entertain a motion and a second to enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, Section A, 3, 4, and 6.
Mayor, perhaps we need to do this first.
Manager's report, sorry. Yep, I was gonna cut that short since we were running a little long. Go ahead, sir.
The mayor mentioned the 9/11 event that is at the Triple S High School. Our community garden folks are also hosting an event on the 11th at 6 p.m. And that is open to the public if anyone wants to come, just to provide some recognition to police and fire and our emergency officials. That'll be on site at the community garden. Just alerting everyone that it's past Labor Day now, so our splash pad is closed. We keep that open from Memorial Day to Labor Day, so it will reopen again on Memorial Day. Also, we have hired a new assistant finance director, Ashley Waters. First day of work was today in that role. So if you happen to see her or anybody comes in this town hall, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now, if there's no further business, I'll entertain that motion to go into closed session.
Mayor, I make a recommendation to move into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A 3, 4, and 6.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Bye-bye. Staying here, sir?